Hello, and welcome to this course on using the Python AND operator. If you're familiar with conditionals for things like if statements and while loops, and you're ready to create more refined conditions, then you will find this course very useful. In this course, we look at the basics of the AND operator, show how it can be used in conditionals, and then take a look at some of the unique ways it can be used in Python for more interesting programming techniques. AND is one of the three Boolean operators implemented in Python. The other two are called OR and NOT. Boolean expressions are used in conditionals to control the flow of instructions in a Python program. This course is specifically about the AND operator, and it's based on a similar tutorial by Leodanis Pozo Ramos. You can find more tutorials and courses on Boolean operators here at RealPython. After completing this course, you will know how the Python AND operator works, how to use the AND operator in both Boolean and non-Boolean contexts, what types of programs you can write using the AND operator, and how to better understand other programmers' code when they use the AND operator in interesting ways. Let me tell you about the tools I'll be using in this course. For Python program files, I use Visual Studio Code with the Dark Plus theme. My terminal shell is iTerm2 for Mac OS. And for my REPL, I use PT-Python with its native theme. I'm Howard Francis, and I'm excited to lead you through this course on the Python AND operator. So let's get started. In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Boolean operations and a bit about how Python implements them. Boolean logic is named after George Boole, who developed a whole system of mathematics based on two values called true and false, and the operations on them, and, or, and not. Since computers work in binary, two values, although we call them 1 and 0, Boolean algebra became the natural way to design and build computers. Boolean expressions are the types of expressions we use in if and while statements. The use of Boolean operators can allow you more precise and sometimes more complicated conditions to describe which branch of an if statement to execute or when to repeat an iteration in a while loop. Here's some terminology relevant to Boolean logic in Python. Boolean is a type of value that can be either true or false. We signify that using the keyword bool for that type, and it's a subtype of the integer type. There are two Boolean values, true and false, and in Python, those are capitalized. A Boolean expression is an expression that returns either true or false. It does a computation and returns true if the result of that computation was true, or false if the result of that computation was false. The three Boolean operators are AND, which connects to expressions, OR, which also connects to expressions, and NOT, which only acts on a single expression. In Python, the keywords that we use for these Boolean operations are, in fact, AND, OR, and NOT. In the next lesson, you'll start seeing the AND operator in use. In this lesson, you'll see the basic definition of the AND operator. As the word suggests, an operator acts on one or more items which are called operands. For example, if you add two numbers together, those two numbers are called the operands. For AND, the operands can be two Boolean expressions, two other types of objects, which you'll see in future lessons, or even a combination of both. Since it takes two operands, AND is referred to as a binary operator. This table, called a truth table, shows the behavior of the AND operator. Basically, if both operands evaluate to true, then the AND of those expressions is true. In all other cases, the result of the AND operation is false. So if you're taking the AND of two expressions, exp1 and exp2, if both are false, the AND of them is false. If the first one is false and the second one is true, false and true is false. In the next row, true and false is false. And finally, in the last row, true and true is true. I want you to make an observation about this table. Notice that if expression 1 is false, the and of both expressions is false. It's essentially the first expression, no matter what the second expression is. And in the second two rows, where the first expression is true, then the result of the and operation is whatever the expression 2 is. The Python programming language and the programmers who use it take advantage of this operation when writing programs, and you'll see that in future lessons as well. But in the next lesson, you'll see the most basic cases of using the and operator in Python. Let's take a look at how and is used with Boolean expressions. Remember, a Boolean expression is an expression that evaluates to true or false. The most common of these are when you do comparisons, like seeing if two expressions have the same value, seeing if one number is larger than another, or smaller than, and even non-numeric values can be compared. Each of these expressions evaluated to either true or false. And these are the most common expressions to use with the and operator. We can connect two expressions that are true with and see that the result is true. If the first expression is false and the second is true, you can see that it is false. If the first is true and the second is false, the whole thing is false. And if both expressions are false, the end of them is false as well. You can use multiple and operators to connect more than two expressions. In this case, the overall expression will evaluate to true only when each of the individual operand expressions are true. If at least one of the operands is false, then the and of them will evaluate to false. Next, we'll look at how you can improve the performance of your program by taking advantage of one of the ways Python implements its and operation. In this lesson, you'll see how Python makes use of something called short-circuit evaluation to sometimes speed up program execution. Short-circuit evaluation, sometimes called lazy evaluation, takes advantage of something you learned in a previous lesson. Remember that sometimes you never even have to evaluate the second operand of an and operation. And Python knows that too. If the first expression is false, the result of the entire operation is false. There's no need to evaluate the second expression. And this is what Python does. Since often that second expression isn't evaluated, this can speed up your program execution. To demonstrate short-circuit evaluation, we'll use these two functions. Each returns a true or a false value, but prints a statement before that, so you'll see when each function is executed. And I have those two functions in this Python file called shortcircuit.py. I'll import them into my REPL, and you'll see when each is executed when used with the and operation. First, import those functions. Now do tests using them with the and operation. Let's try true and false first. As you can see, both functions were executed before the result was displayed. Now try false first, then true. You can see only the false function was evaluated. There was no need to evaluate the true function, since the result of the and operation was already determined. Now try where both are false. Again, only the left operand was evaluated. Since it was known to be false, there was no need to evaluate the right. And finally, when both are true, both functions had to be evaluated because Python couldn't tell from just the first expression what the overall result was going to be. Again, if the first expression evaluates to true, the second expression must be evaluated to determine the result of the AND operation. Notice also the result in those cases is actually what the right-hand operand evaluated to. And if the first expression evaluated to false, that was the result of the entire operation, and there was no need to evaluate the second. And that's how short-circuit evaluation works. How might you as a programmer take advantage of short-circuit evaluation? Here are a couple of suggestions. If one of your two expressions takes much longer to evaluate than the other, take that expression and put it last. There's a possibility it won't be executed at all sometimes. Another idea is to put an expression that you know will most likely be false first. So when it does evaluate to false, there's no need to evaluate the second. Next, you'll explore how AND can be used with things other than Boolean expressions. In this lesson, you'll learn that AND can be used with more general objects than Boolean expressions, and see how that evaluation is performed. AND can be used with Python objects because all objects in Python have a truth value. Most objects are true, but there are some exceptions. The none object and false, of course, are false. Any numeric type with a value of 0 is false, and empty collections, like lists, strings, and so on, are also considered false. Also, if a class has certain dunder methods, like say length or bool, then what they return, like a length of 0, would determine if that object were false. So Python objects can be connected with the word AND, since they all have some truthiness to them. When AND is performed on objects, the value returned is one of those objects. The result isn't going to be true or false. This makes Python's implementation a little different than other languages that let you perform AND with things other than just Boolean expressions. If the first operand is false, then that object will be the result of the operation. Remember how I phrased something in an earlier lesson. If the first operand is false, that's what's returned. That meaning the first operand. If the first operand is true, then the second operand object is the result of the operation. As you heard me say earlier, I carefully phrased these results in this manner before, so that it would match up with a more general case you're learning now. So in your program, if you have two objects, x and y, and you're taking the AND of them, the result will be x if x is false, and y if x is true. And again, this is basically a generalization of what you've learned before. Let's take a look at some examples. 2 and 3. This makes perfect sense in Python. And since 2 is considered true, the result of the operation should be the second operand, 3. Another one with numbers, 5 and 0.0. Since 5 is also true, the second operand, 0.0, will be the result. In this case, the first operand is an empty list. That evaluates to false. So that operand, the empty list, should be the result. And it is. Here, 0 is considered false, so that will be the result. And one more case. False is, of course, false, so that will be the result. Next, you'll learn how to mix Boolean expressions and objects using AND.